At the Gulfport Luxury RV Park. Before we get started into our next interview, I wanted to pass something on we didn't get to with Representative Greg Haney, and that is a report just released about tourism and the economic impact of tourism in the state of Mississippi for 2023. Turns out, according to the report, that tourism contributed a record-breaking $17.5 billion to the Magnolia State's economy. This was just announced at the Governor's Conference on Tourism on Friday, October the 4th, just last week. So 43.7 million domestic and international visitors came into our state in 2023. They spent a whole bunch of money. This, of course, also drives job creation. It is thought that it's researched that some 133,000 jobs were sustained as a result of that. That's $4.5 billion in labor income. Of course, also lots of state and local taxes are collected. They spend lots of money. Food, beverage, lodging, recreation, retail. So a lot of benefit to the state of Mississippi from those visitors to our state. We have a great Department of Tourism, local tourism organizations as well. We welcome now the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell. Good to see you there, Commissioner.
Great to be here. Great day outside. Beautiful, beautiful weather here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and really throughout the whole state.
Yeah, absolutely. We, of course, feel for our friends to the east in the state of Florida who just endured this unbelievable Hurricane Milton that came through state of Mississippi. Thus far, we'll knock on some wood, we've been for the most part spared of these Gulf storms. Yeah,
but, you know, we've had plenty of years where we've had multiple storms hit, and of course I've lived here my whole life, and have had them in October, September, and August. Wreak a lot of havoc. So I'm glad that folks here in Mississippi are safe, but we are certainly praying for our friends in Florida and at the Department of Public Safety. I've been meeting with Colonel Haynes and Colonel Davis and looking at ways we can deploy assets to those that are in need in Florida. Met with Mac McCraney yesterday and the governor as well on how we do that and what that looks like. I know some firefighters from the coast were requested to go down there. And so, it just, again, in this job, beautiful day like today, folks enjoying the Mississippi Gulf Coast, enjoying cruising the coast. And our first responders are out there doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And if it takes them to Florida, it takes them to Florida. If it keeps them here, making sure people are safe, they do it when everybody else is having a good time. So I want to give a shout out and a lot of thanks to our first responders across the state for what they do each and every day and the sacrifices they make to keep our state and our country safe.
And, of course, when the need arises here in the state of Mississippi, these other states and their first responders help us out as well.
That's right. And that was my conversation with Colonel Haynes and Colonel Davis yesterday was, we tend to we'll get what we give. And, so we want to make sure that they know we're ready to respond at a moment's notice. And there will come a time when we need their help, and they'll do the same for us.
There's been a lot of criticism of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, and I guess lots of information that FEMA says is inaccurate. They've even actually got a Rumor Central sort of page on their website. When you have situations like this, who is mostly responsible, or who's at the top of the hierarchy? Is it the federal organizations, or is it the state organizations? Do they collaborate? How does that work?
There is a certain degree of collaboration, but I will tell you from my standpoint, in the position I'm in and my counterparts in other states, we answer to our governors.
Sure.
And so we wait on a call from the governor of Florida, DeSantis, to say this is what we need. He'll reach out to Governor Reeves. Governor Reeves will say, all right, Commissioner Tindell, I need 30 troopers ready to go. We're going to swear them in Tallahassee, and they're going to be sent down to South Florida. So from our standpoint, in that immediate response, it really does fall a lot on the governors and the state leadership. But from a federal standpoint, obviously they can offer aid and financial assistance and can come in from that standpoint. So there is collaboration, but I always go back to the folks that are going to know how to respond the best are the locals and the state officials, because they know what they're dealing with in that particular area.
That's consistent with what Governor DeSantis has been saying, and I caught a press conference he conducted early this morning, of course, in the aftermath of the storm. That's exactly what he said. We got it. FEMA's doing what they're responsible for. But we're running the show here, and FEMA does provide resources, but a lot of what they provide, of course, is sort of temporary. They're not going to be there for the long term. It's not their responsibility. But they also do have certain funds that are designated for some of the recovering and rebuilding efforts. Yesterday, Mayor Fofo Gillich of Biloxi said he's still dealing with some outstanding issues from Ian that he's dealing with FEMA on. But this is kind of typical with just federal bureaucracy, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, I think what happens, and at least what I can see, FEMA set up for these emergency responses, and then somewhere along the way their mission gets diverted and gets political, and then they start getting into housing immigrants instead of focusing on hurricane responses and earthquake responses and all the many natural catastrophes that we have. So unfortunately, I think some of the funds that should have been for American citizens during these disaster responses has been misallocated and misappropriated into other avenues.
I feel like this is something the Congress needs to investigate. I mean, they get their money from the appropriations from Congress. They report to the Congress. Unfortunately, as you know, and I don't want to get off into this rabbit hole, but the sprawling federal bureaucracy underneath the executive branch seems to operate to a great extent autonomously, and they're not supposed to. They're supposed to be under the purview of the Congress, the people we elect.
That's right. And I've always felt and believed that, if they can take your money or they can take your freedom, that ought to be a law passed by Congress.
Totally agree.
And that should not be a regulation or something done by a regulatory agency or a bureaucrat. So, again, I think that's something Congress needs to look into. And the reality is you look at our national debt and where we're going, it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And so when Americans need the help, unfortunately it looks like a lot of our assets are going overseas. So
yeah, totally agree. Well, let's talk about the Department of Public Safety. How are we doing?
We're doing good. We got another trooper school coming up. We checked our rolls just the other day. We have just north of 1,600 employees. Next week we're doing our groundbreaking on our Capitol Police headquarters in downtown Jackson. So that's going to be a major thing for Capitol Police as we continue to grow their efforts to make the city of Jackson and our capital city safer. We were down here last week. We started cruising the coast on Sunday with in Gulfport, our Highway Patrol Mustang, made a trip down here, and one of our retired Department of Public Safety employees, Philip Kidd, who was a dispatcher and his father was a trooper, has one of the classic Mustangs. So we had them parked next to each other, and I told our crew, I said, next time we're going to have recruiters here, because there were so many young people coming by looking at both of them, and was like, oh, we really like that. Tell us more about the Highway Patrol. So, I do think it's a great opportunity, and it's interesting with the Mustangs. We've gotten a little bit of pushback for even buying them, but they're doing away with the Dodge Charger. Of course, Ford no longer does a Crown Vic, and so if you want to have a true police car, the Mustangs are just about the only thing left. And so Explorers are great, Durangos are great, Tahoes are great, but when you get on the interstate and you're having to do a pursuit, they're just not going to outdo a car. And so we're going to have a few of those. We're going to see how well they work in our fleet, and if they continue to do a good job and something that is our best viable option, that's what we'll go with.
With cruising the coast and the influx of so many visitors in a compressed period of time, do you have to change your staffing model?
We do, and we work with our local departments to make sure that we have extra patrols where needed. And I just saw last night, and I do want to say this: it infuriates me when I see folks, and somebody posted an incident that happened on Highway 90 at a red light when they're burning out, and everybody wants to have fun and a good time. But this car lost control, ended up going into a light pole, and that's just being an idiot. Number one, you could kill somebody.
It could have been a human instead of a light pole.
Could have been a human instead of a light pole. Number two, if it was, you're going to go to jail, and you're going to be prosecuted, and then you just ruined your classic car. So don't act like a fool. Get out here and have a good time. Enjoy the other cars. And there's places you can go do that kind of stuff, but let's not do it on Highway 90. Let's not do it in big crowds, and let's make sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, that's great advice. Such an economic boost for the Gulf Coast area. Our state is enjoying really some pretty good economic times. You've probably seen the latest revenue reports. Revenues are strong. but we need good people in the Department of Public Safety to keep our roads and our community safe.
We do, and look, I appreciate so much the ones that want to take on that calling. We have bigger numbers this year applying to go to patrol school, and I think part of that was the pay raise that the legislature authored and the governor championed. And that's one thing that's great about our state. It really is a back to blue state, a public safety minded state. I got a report from U.S. News and World Report this year, and usually we're used to seeing Mississippi at the bottom in some categories, and we've been doing great things in education, getting off the bottom. But public safety, we were number 17 in the country.
That's awesome.
As overall public safety. So I think a lot of good things are going on, and a lot of good people want to get in that profession, and we're going to continue to recruit and give them a pathway to have a career that they could be proud of and make good
Sounds
money
good.
and keep their communities safe.
Commissioner Sean Tindell has been our guest. We're coming right back.